Hi, my name is Charles Malki, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants and author of Saving the World with the Home Garden. And today we're here with none other than Kyle Haggerty, the urban farmstead, who is one of the leading educators on YouTube and Instagram. And I'm putting those links in the bio below. And we're going to see what's possible to be growing here in the Northern California climate. For those of you in the Northern California area, specifically, we're here in Sacramento. You're going to see all the deliciousness you can be growing in your backyard orchard. Let's get to checking that out.
Yeah, let's check it out.
Thanks again for having us.
Of course, thanks for coming. We'll start here in the orchard. I planted this orchard 2 years ago. I've got 10 different fruit trees, and my goal here is to have fruit all summer long. So I chose varieties that would all fruit at different times, and I've kept up with pruning them to keep them really small in this space. They're just 6 feet apart. I want to be able to manage the trees, pick all the fruit and everything from the ground. So that was a big part of the success in creating a backyard orchard and being able to grow a lot of fruit in a small space. One of the trees though that I grow that's going to get pretty large is my avocado tree, and that's right here. This tree also was planted this tree has only been in the ground for about 2 years, and as you can see, they're very vigorous growers. But one of the important things with avocado trees is they have really thin green bark that's really susceptible to sunburn. So this is a tree that I paint every year to protect its bark, and I use IV Organics just to give it a nice whitewash on the bark. This newer stuff that's coming out is going to be a little bit tougher, but the older branches you can see in here, when the tree isn't covered with foliage, if you leave that exposed bark to the sun, it gets sunburned. It's going to kill those branches and could eventually kill the tree. So whitewashing this tree was really important, but I actually whitewashed every single one of the trees in my orchard when I first planted them, because as you can see right now, they have a full canopy. But in the first year, when you're planting out trees and they don't have a lot of branches and leaves on them, their bark is exposed and it's thinner then, so it's really easy to burn those trees. So painting the trees was really important, and also, as I said, pruning them. Give them a nice low pruning cut initially to create a low scaffold. And now I prune them in summer and I prune them in winter to create a nice open shape and keep low trees. You can see they're very vigorous. This thing I pruned 4 feet off this tree already this year, and it's already grown back another foot, but I'm getting fruit on all these trees. It starts out with the early peach, then the nectarplum, then the aprium, and now we're on to the later season peach right now. This one here is an O. Henry peach. So it's got these beautiful large peaches on it, and this started fruiting about 2 weeks ago. I'll keep harvesting this for another 2 weeks, and then after this tree we'll start harvesting apples and figs and jujube. This is a Lee jujube right here. These things are kind of like small apples. The tree has a lot of thorns, but they do really well in hot, dry climates, and you can see this thing is loaded with fruit right now. So the jujubes are great ones, and then I also just started harvesting the figs. This fig tree right here is a panache fig, also called a tiger stripe fig. So these beautiful yellow and green striped figs, if you cut into it, inside they're bright red, and these things taste like raspberry jam. They're delicious. So I've got that fig tree, and then on the other side, got another fig tree. This one's called a blackjack fig. It's a purple fig, and it's very productive. What I love about this particular variety is that it fruits for a very long season. So it's got a lot of fruit that's ripe today, but it's got fruit in all different stages. So as you can see, it's got fruit like this one's going to be ripe next week, this one's going to be ripe in about 3 weeks, and this one will be ripe in about a month. So this tree will keep fruiting for me for about 3 months straight, which is a really unique thing for fruit trees to be able to do. A lot of varieties, you just get one harvest for about 3 weeks. Being able to harvest fresh fruit for 3 months is a really nice perk. So blackjack fig is a favorite one if you want long fruiting in a small space. It also stays pretty small. I don't do a lot of pruning with this, and it kind of weeps down, so that keeps it small for this space. So that's most of what's going on in this orchard. Let's check out the vegetable garden. So here in my vegetable garden, I have 8 raised beds, and I'm growing different crops in each one. Through the years, I'll rotate them to different beds just to make sure that I'm not building up diseases and pests in those beds through crop rotation. This bed is all my root vegetables. So I have beets going along the edges and carrots all through the center. A bunch of different varieties of carrots in here. Got your standard orange carrots. I've got some purple carrots here. Then in this next bed, I've got all my spicy peppers. This front row is all Fresno chilies. A lot of these are starting to dry up on the plant, and I'll pick these off soon and dry these and make a crushed red pepper with those, or a chili powder. But they're also putting on a lot more fruit on the top. So very productive Fresno chilies. They're kind of like the heat of a jalapeno, but a bit more sweet. And then in here, I've got some more spicy peppers. You can see this dark purple, tiny little thing, very spicy little pepper. And I've got Carolina Reapers, which are one of the world's most spicy peppers. These are right here. These are still green, but in a few weeks, they're gonna turn red and they will be very spicy. And behind those, I have the habanada. So these are a heatless habanero, super productive variety. You can see this thing is just covered with fruit. And these are a very unique pepper because they taste like a habanero, but they're completely sweet with no heat. You bite into it and instantly you think, oh boy, what did I do? But then it's just sweet, no heat, really good pepper. These are all Jimmy Nardellos here. They're an Italian frying pepper. A little bit of heat, but mostly sweet. And then this bed has all my sweet peppers. So these are called escamillo. They're a sweet yellow or orange pepper. Very similar to a bell pepper, but for me, they're a lot more productive. And I think the flavor is a lot better. And on the other side, I've got Carmen peppers, which are similar, but they're a red variety. So again, very sweet, very productive. You can see all these plants are loaded with fruit. They're all self-supporting. There's no trellising or staking or anything like that. So nice crops, all these. Nice sweet pepper. And then this is the tomatillo row right here. I'm using kind of a Florida weave style trellising system where I have stakes at either end and then confine the plants with string that goes back and forth. 3 different varieties of tomatillo, your classic green tomatillo, and my favorite, which is called the Queen of Malinalco. See if I can find one in here. So I've got regular green tomatillos, purple tomatillos, and my favorite, which is the Queen of Malinalco. This is this elongated yellow tomatillo. And these things are delicious right off the plant. You don't have to cook them, nothing. Sweet, citrusy, kind of tropical flavors to them. On the other side of the tomatillos, I've got tomatoes. So these are all cherry tomatoes here. Right in the front, we've got the Berries Crazy Cherry. This thing just does these wild clusters of kind of these grape teardrop shaped tomatoes. And they just fall off the plant. There's just so many of them. And then a few other cherry tomato varieties down here. Then on the north end, another shady spot. I plant the cherry tomatoes right here because it's very low sunlight in this space. So I couldn't really grow a larger beefsteak tomato because they need more sunlight, but I can grow the cherry tomatoes here. So I've got a few different cherry tomato varieties. These are all bumblebee varieties here. This is called a sunrise bumblebee. It's orange, yellow, and red. Purple bumblebee, pink bumblebee. And down here I've got some beautiful ones. These are called blue-green zebra. So they're kind of like a green zebra where they have the green and yellow striping, but then they add in this cool purple striping as well. It's really pretty tomatoes there. I've got basil planted in the middle of the rows. It's a great companion plant for tomatoes. Not only does it taste good together, but they help each other with nutrients and pest pressure and things like that. Then this is where I have my larger beefsteak tomatoes. So the largest variety that I grow is called striped German. These beautiful, large, orange, yellow tomatoes. These things get massive. I just harvested one that was about 2.5 pounds. These are my favorite for tomato sandwiches. And then a bunch of other ones in here. Got Italian red pear. It's a cool, large, pear-shaped Italian tomato. Got some black beauty and some Cherokee purples in here. Then in this bed, I'm growing all of my squash. I've got summer squash and winter squash. For the winter squash, mostly I have these miniature butternut squash. There's quite a few of them. You kind of have to dig around, but you can find them all growing through here. And then the summer squash variety that I grow is called center cut squash, which is technically a winter squash, but you usually harvest them when they're about the size of a zucchini and use them like a zucchini. Now this one is a little bit large. It's probably about twice as large as you would want to harvest these, but this will still be good. Still slice it up and use it like you would a zucchini. I'm also letting these vine up this big hedge in the back where I have more of these center cut squash and cucumbers climbing up here. So here's a cucumber that I like a lot. This is called a striped Armenian cucumber. These are not a true cucumber. They're technically a melon, but they look and taste a lot like a cucumber. And a really nice thing about them is if you leave them on the plant too long, they don't get bitter like most cucumbers will. So striped Armenian and Armenian cucumbers are a couple of my favorites to grow. And down here, I've got a bunch of eggplant, different Japanese eggplant varieties. They're more long and slender than the Italian eggplant, and I find them to be a lot more productive as well. There's a ton of eggplant on these plants here. You can see all these things just loaded down with this fruit. Bunch of them on there. And back behind the eggplant, got one called Pepino melon or Pepino dulce. So this, even though it's called Pepino melon, it's not actually a melon. It looks like an eggplant and it is a relative of the eggplant. I'm pretty sure it's a nightshade, but it tastes like a melon. It tastes like a mild honeydew melon. This one's not fully ripe yet, but it's close enough. So it kind of has a yellow flesh on the inside, really small seeds like you would see in a tomato. And it tastes like a mild honeydew. It's juicy, a little bit like a cucumber, but mostly like a honeydew. So here I'm growing okra. And if you've ever grown okra before, which I hadn't until this year, you probably know that you have a very short harvesting window. So these flowers will open in the morning, then by the next day they're about this size, then the next day they're a good size to harvest, a day or two, but then they get really large and fibrous and they're too tough to eat then. And then they just get beautiful and they turn into little seed packets that you can store and keep the seeds like that in your basement for next season. But all the ones on the bottom of this plant are no good anymore, just these small ones up top. So that's most of what's growing right now in the vegetable garden. Let's check out my newest project here in the garden, which is my subtropical food forest that I planted just about 4 months ago. And so far, it's doing really well. So the first thing you might notice with the subtropical food forest is I have this big shade canopy over everything. It's a 40% shade cloth, and I've mounted it on each corner with these tall posts. The reason I have this is because these subtropical trees are not adapted to our hot, dry Northern California summers. So a little bit of shade, especially in the beginning while the trees are small, is gonna help them out, give them a good head start. So I put this over the top, and then in winter time, I will have to frost protect some of these at least for the first winter. Then after that, I'm hoping that they can adapt and survive. So I've got passion vines growing up these posts. Right here is a starfruit tree. This one is a jujube, but it's a tropical jujube, unlike the Lee jujube in my other orchard. So this one will keep leaves year round and the fruit's a little bit different. This one right here is called a grumi chama. It's got some fruit on it. You can see right here, they're like these little cherries, little dark black cherries. Down here, I've got turmeric. This is a jaboticaba. On this side, I've got some guavas. This is a Ruby Supreme guava. So you can see it flowering right now. You can actually see some fruit that I've already set, and it's putting on new flowers that are just coming on. So it should have quite a long fruiting season. Some of these fruits are about a third of the way grown. Some of these flowers are just opening up today. Right here, I've got a lychee, a couple of mango trees in here. These are gonna be the biggest challenge in my climate because it's way too cold here to be growing mangoes. So this will be one section that's gonna be pretty challenging, and I will have to frost protect these for the first couple of years. They may or may not survive, but I'm hoping they do, of course. Most of the other ones have a lot more chance of survival here. This is a unique one. This is called an oak leaf papaya. I started this from a seed, and it's grown this year this tall. And right now it's covered in flowers that will be opening up soon, and hopefully it sets some little papayas. These oak leaf papayas are about the size of a grape, which is nice because larger papayas can take a long time to grow. So here in this climate where we have cold winters, sometimes by the time they size up, it's already too cold. With the oak leaf papaya, they grow so quickly that I should be able to get fruit out of this before it gets too cold to ripen up that fruit. I have a cherimoya tree right here. It's young, so I have a couple more years till it fruits. Right here is a lemon guava. This thing is loaded with fruit right now. This fruit is about full size, but it still has some time to ripen off. These will turn yellow, but all the branches on this tree are covered with fruit. These do really well here. This is a white sapote. White sapote are also adapted to tolerate our hot summers and our cold winters. This variety is called Vernon. It has about half a dozen fruit on it right now. These are delicious fruit. They're kind of like a tropical custard, a little bit like a pear, but absolutely delicious. The trees kind of grow wonky, so they need some different supports that you wouldn't normally have on some other trees, but seems to be thriving. It's tolerating the heat here really well. Right here is a black sapote. The black sapote and the white sapote are not relatives. This is actually a relative of the persimmon, and this is a lot more frost sensitive than the white sapote. So it could have some challenges. I will have to frost protect this one, but so far it's thriving. Right here is a sapodilla, similar to a sapote. Another one that's a little bit more tender and slow growing, but doing well so far. And then right here is an ice cream bean. These are very fast growing. This thing has grown 5 feet in the last 3 months, I would say. Another one that's somewhat frost sensitive, so it'll probably have some dieback this year, but it should recover in spring from any dieback that it does have. This is a longan, Thai longan. A couple of avocado trees here, Zutano and Mexicola. These are both varieties that are adapted to survive in colder climates. They can get down to the mid-20s, I believe, and these have both been outside in pots for a couple of years, so they've been adapted to the cold. Hopefully now that they're in the ground, they'll take off and give me some fruit soon. Another oak leaf papaya here. This is a moringa tree. Moringa, you eat the leaves of it and it's like a superfood. It's also super fast growing. This thing was a foot tall when I planted it 2 months ago, and it's very tall now, so it needs a pruning so I can get it to bush out and give me a lot more of those superfood leaves on it. Back here I've got some more passion vines that I need to create a trellis for. This is a rose apple. This one's not enjoying the heat too much, but has put on a lot of nice growth this year. Under here, so this is a big grapefruit tree, but underneath it I've got a couple of dragon fruit plants that I have growing underneath the tree. So the tree will give them some protection from the cold frost in winter, but it also protects them from direct sunlight in the summer while they're young. One of the cool things with these dragon fruit is that in the wild they are adapted to they kind of trellis themselves up trees. So if you see a lot of people growing dragon fruit in their garden, they'll have them in containers and they create a trellis structure for them. I'm just planting them next to this tree and allowing them to use this tree as their trellis. And if you look close, you can see this one is actually grabbing onto this tree already. So I just planted them here, leaned them up against this tree, and they're finding this tree as a suitable trellis. So far, so good with that plan. This is a blue Java ice cream banana. It is adapted to grow in this climate. I have friends who are growing this here, and not only do they survive, but they also produce fruit. So this will have some dieback in winter for sure, but it will bounce back and come back in spring. This tree, when I planted it 3 months ago, was just over waist height, and it has just exploded with growth. It also has a lot of pups around it. I believe I'm supposed to remove some of these pups to concentrate the energy into the main tree, so I'll probably be doing that soon. Just pulling these up, repotting them. A beautiful tree. Over here I've got a longan. This is a Hawaiian longan, and it's got a pretty nice little fruit set on it considering it's a young tree and it's growing in a climate that is not ideal for it. But a lot of fruit. This fruit should ripen up before we get a frost, which will be great. through here, I've got a lot of ground cover as melons. So watermelons growing in here. These are smaller varieties, so this one's actually probably about ready to harvest. We've got some cantaloupes and different melons below. Another guava right here, getting a little bit of fruit. This is a tropical white guava. This is a tree tomato. They're very fast growing, but this one was started from a seed just a couple of months ago, so it's gonna take some time to produce some fruit. Right here is one of those oak leaf papayas, and you can actually see the fruit starting to set on this. So it's got a bunch of these little fruits, and these are actually about a quarter of the way grown. So they'll only get to the size of a large grape when they're fully grown. So these fruit look like they're set on here, and I'll definitely be enjoying some of these little oak leaf papayas pretty soon. This is called a Barbados cherry. It has these small red cherries. There's no fruit on it right now, but it's got a couple of buds starting to open to flower, so I might get a crop on this. But each little cherry has the amount of vitamin C that 5 oranges have. So they used to grow these just to use as vitamin C supplements before they started making vitamin C synthetically. So tons of vitamin C on this one. Tree's growing very vigorously. It might be tough through the frost, but we'll find out. That's kind of the case for a lot of these trees. They're not adapted to grow in the hot summers that we have, but so far, every single one of them has been thriving through our heat. But the winter time is going to be a whole nother challenge to see if they can survive the winter. As I said, I'll be frost protecting some of them for the first year or two, and after that, whatever survives, survives. So I will be showing on my YouTube channel how I created this space and every space, and I'll also be giving updates on how all of this survives or dies or thrives, and hopefully showing all the fruit that I'm enjoying from this subtropical food forest.
So I hope you've all enjoyed this tour of the urban farmstead here with Kyle Haggerty, and thank you again so very much for that.
Thank you.
And I hope you all enjoyed it as well, where you can see that you can successfully grow hundreds of things, whether they be crops, vegetables, or even fruit trees from exotic places from all around the world can successfully be grown here in the Northern California climate. Additionally, as Kyle mentioned, if it makes it, it makes it. I'm paraphrasing here, but a lot of growers will say that when something dies, and these are the pros, they'll say that that creates an opportunity to grow something new. All of us, regardless of where you live in the country, all have a unique backyard orchard. As your fingerprints are all different, every backyard has its own microclimate with different soils, different retentions of water when going to water, competition below the soil between competing trees and roots and so forth. Every property is different, and you've got to learn what grows best for you. And as you can see, and as Kyle has accomplished successfully, is he's growing hundreds of plants that look very happy to me. And again, he's got that challenge coming this winter to see how that's going to work out. Additionally, to continue watching the Urban Farmstead successes, be sure to go to Urban Farmstead on Instagram and YouTube, and I'm putting those links in the description below. And be sure to subscribe, follow, and hit that push bell notification to stay connected to all of his lessons as soon as they become made available. Kyle, I also want to thank you for making Ivory Organics a part of your growing success, and I'm so proud that you shared at least the Ivory Organics 3-in-1 Plant Guard as a product to help protect your plants from the weather extremes.
Yeah, the Ivory Organics is an important part of the success of my orchard and a lot of my trees, so I'm glad that you make such a great product that I can use here and that a lot of people benefit from.
That's great news. We're so excited that Ivory Organics is a part of your growing successes, and we hope that Ivory Organics is a part of your backyard growing experiences as well. As always, keep growing with Ivory Organics, and wishing you all happy gardening.